How do I set boundaries without feeling like I've let someone down? Well, by the end of today, you'll understand why disappointing someone doesn't mean you've done something wrong. You have a simple way to hold a boundary and let someone else's reaction move through you instead of pulling you back. And you'll walk away with the start of a life and a relationship with yourself built on respect instead of exhaustion. So right now, somewhere, someone is having to say yes to something that they don't want to do. They'll tell themselves it's fine. They'll tell themselves it's easier this way. But underneath, there's always a reason why they don't really want to do it and how it's going to end. And that might be resentful. It might be exhausted. I'm wondering why they keep doing this to themselves. Now, here's the thing that nobody tells you about confidence. It's not always loud. Sometimes the most confident thing you can do is to let someone else be disappointed in you. And today we're talking about why that feels so hard and what to do about it. So, hey, I'm Julie. I'm a confidence identity specialist and the creator of the Identity Box Rewind method. I like to help capable, successful people understand why you still feel stuck in your old subconscious patterns. And more importantly, how to rewire them so that you can become the version of yourself that you always deserved to be. So, what we're talking about today? Well, we are talking about boundaries. Who's good at keeping boundaries? Specifically, why setting one can leave you feeling like you've done something wrong, even when you've actually done something right. Now, later on, I'm going to walk you through something I call the love or guilt check. All right. And it's a simple 4-step framework that helps you catch yourself before you automatically say yes. And you're going to understand what's really driving that decision and start making choices from the version of yourself that you deserve to be, rather than that version of yourself your subconscious created to keep you safe. But first, let's see if you recognize yourself in any of these examples, right? Have you ever said yes to something and you felt your stomach drop the second that word left your mouth, all right? Do you ever notice yourself rehearsing how to say no and then not saying it? Yes just pops out your mouth. Have you ever over-explained a decision nobody actually questioned? Do you find yourself agreeing to plans that you didn't want to, just to avoid that conversation? And do you feel guilty resting or taking time for yourself while others are still needing from you? So if you're nodding along, this isn't because you're weak or you're simply too nice. The chances are your subconscious learned a long time ago that keeping everyone happy was the safest way to stay accepted, loved, or avoid conflict. And the problem is that program is still running today, all right? So this is all around my Identity Box Rewind method. It's a subconscious programming that's still back in our childhood, back in the past, or not always in the childhood. Sometimes it can be more up to date, but the point being, it isn't you being you at the age that you are today. Boundaries is such a big issue for my clients. I see it all the time. And bearing in mind, I predominantly work with like really capable people who are in really good careers or running their own businesses. And on the outside, they look incredibly confident, incredibly capable. They're successful, reliable, but there's something that's not quite right underneath. It's a little bit like that swan analogy, isn't it? It's sitting calmly on the top, but underneath his legs are going mental. Now, this is really, really common, and this causes them to be exhausted. All right. And a lot of the time, they start saying yes to things that they shouldn't or don't really want to. Now, remember, this is not just at work or in your business. This is family as well, all right? If you've got a lot going on with your family, maybe with your kids, but maybe with your siblings, whatever it is, there's always something going on, isn't there, that you're asked to do something and maybe you just don't want to do it, but you do it anyway out of guilt or love. But what you might not really understand is the reason that you're doing this is because your body is being triggered, right? So as I said, I see this a lot with my clients, and they are high performers, they over deliver. And then all of a sudden they kind of wonder why they start to feel resentful, overwhelmed, and sadly quite burnt out. And their problem was never boundaries. It was about their identity and how they learned to become. You know, I mean, it's a very common issue, isn't it, about the work-life balance, spending too much time at work/business. And by the end of the day, you've got nothing left to give to anybody else. So why does say no feel so much bigger than it should? So a lot of us grew up picking up messages in our childhood, and it might have been oh, you need to be really good, don't make a fuss, keep everyone happy, because otherwise you was going to cause trouble in that family or at school, whatever it is. And they're the words that might be ringing in your ears now when you're listening to this. Now, at that time, that felt like the safest way to belong. So if you did as you were told, then everything would be fine. You wouldn't get told off at home, or you'd be the good student at school, whatever it was. But being easy also meant that you weren't at risk of anything happening or anyone pulling away from you. So maybe as a child, if your parent was maybe quite critical, and the only way you could get their attention or feel loved might have been just by being quiet or just not causing a fuss, all right? But those things are all stored in our subconscious programming. And what your brain's done, it's filed it away in that filing cabinet. As that rule, it's keeping you safe. So that's what you need to do. You need to be quiet. You need to not share your opinions and things like that. And therefore, you might not speak your mind. All right. So this is where the boundaries all start getting a bit wobbly. And I often describe this in my identity box rewire method, because this is, you have become that identity, that person who struggles to have a boundary. Again, another example might be you learn to be a good girl or a good boy. All right. That was just who you are. And maybe you've gone through your career, being that responsible one, the reliable one, the one that people always go to, but also the people that kind of take advantage of you because they know that, I'll give it to Julie, she won't say anything. Now, they weren't personality traits. They're survival strategies. All right. Now, the problem is your subconscious mind doesn't know you're no longer that child anymore. So every time someone might be disappointed in you, it still triggers. It's sending that trigger to your filing cabinet. Oh, your safety is under threat. Does that make sense? Because it's all about what's stored in our filing cabinet, aka our subconscious mind. And our mind's only job is to keep us safe, right? So in those situations when we were younger, being quiet and being a good girl, that kept us safe. So that was stored as safety. And then when you start doing something a little bit outside the box, oh, hang on, that's not safe. Right, so your body is under threat. I mean, this can show up in different places, but here's an example that you might recognize, right? Imagine your boss has asked you to stay late. Now, before you've even thought about it, you've already said yes, right? You're, yep, sure. Then you cancel the dinner with your partner, you get in trouble with your partner, then you drive home really frustrated, and then you spend the whole evening thinking, why didn't I just say no? Now, that wasn't a confidence problem, and it certainly wasn't poor time management. It was old subconscious programming, making that decision before your conscious mind had a chance, right? So you said yes from your subconscious programming before you even had the chance to go, oh, hang on, I've got dinner tonight. Oh, and consciously process it. Another example might be that you're staying quiet in a meeting when you actually disagree with everything everyone's saying. When a client changes a scope for the third time, and now you're feeling resentful for the rest of the day. And a home example might be that you've been asked to swap to do the school run, even though you're exhausted, but you just felt, it's just not worth that big conversation. I can't be bothered. But it's all breaking boundaries, but it's all about what's triggering us in our subconscious programming. So the tool I want to share with you today, I'm just going to give you a little explainer of how it works, okay? So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to try and interrupt that automatic yes, yeah? So most of the damage happens in the first half a second before you've even registered you're deciding anything. So if you can catch that moment, you get a choice back. The first step is to bring awareness into what you're doing. Because if you're not even aware of what you're doing and what's going on, how are you ever going to change, right? So then after we've done the interrupt to the automatic yes, it gives the guilt somewhere to go, right? So guilt on its own just sits there and drives the decision. But one honest question gives it something to answer. So instead of running the show, you can challenge it, all right? And then it separates the decision from the discomfort. So you can make the right decision and still feel uncomfortable about it. But the tool isn't about making the discomfort disappear. It's about not letting the discomfort make that decision for you. Yeah, so you can make a decision from your heart, if you like, from what's true and what you really want to do. But it doesn't mean to say it's not going to feel uncomfortable. But then we're going to sort of kind of process that feeling, if it's uncomfortable or if it's okay. Now, I call this little tool the love or guilt check. I know. It's quite easy because it's really based on asking one question at the right moment, and then you see what changes happen. All right. So, number one, we're going to catch the yes before it leaves your mouth. All right. And number two, we're going to ask yourself, am I doing this from love or from guilt? And number three, we're going to notice what you're afraid will happen if you say no. And number four, say what's true and let the discomfort move through you instead of taking it back. All right. So should we have a go? But I just want you just to kind of stop what you're doing and focus on this. It's going to take us a few minutes. That's all. All right. So first of all, I want you to bring one situation to mind. So think of something that you said yes to recently, or something you're about to say yes to that you didn't fully want. All right. It doesn't need to be dramatic. A small one is absolutely fine. All right. So just take a moment to land on something specific. Yeah. Then what I want you to do is notice what happens in your body. All right. So where did you feel it? Maybe your chest went tight, or heart racing, or stomach felt a bit sick. Your jaw was all tense. Just notice what your shoulders are doing. All right. There's no right answer here. Just notice. And just sit for a few seconds before moving on. And then next up, we're going to ask the question, am I doing this from love or from guilt? And don't judge whatever answer comes up, and nobody else needs to hear it. This is simply about becoming aware of what's really driving your decision. So say it slowly in your own head and actually wait for an answer rather than rushing it. This is the moment. I just want you just to really notice the physicals in your body. Then notice what you're afraid will happen. So if the honest answer is guilt, what do you think would happen if you said no? Would they be upset? Would they think differently of you? Would they manage without you? Now, if it's love, do you generally have time for it? So just sit with that, because sometimes when it is love, we feel like we should do it anyway, but we can still put ourselves in that position where it just messes up everything else, because now you haven't got time to do something really important. All right, just see what comes up or not. And then we're going to let that discomfort move through you. So you don't have to fix the feeling. You don't have to make it go away. Just notice you can feel uncomfortable and still hold your answer. Yeah. Just notice that feeling. Notice that discomfort passing through you. It's not a sign that you've made the wrong call. It's just what happened on the way to set a boundary. So people always assume that because I teach this work, these old patterns never show up for me. Well, this is definitely not true. And I've had many challenges recently, and many people are challenging me, and many triggers have come up. But the good news is I get to understand them and get to them quicker. I mean, sometimes I do completely miss them, but because I've got lots of tools and techniques now, and also because I have done a lot of deep subconscious programming my identity, things don't come up as much, but there are still things in there. There'll always be something. And depending on the situations that you're dealing with at that time, you know, you might notice periods in your life where it happens more. But yeah, the good news is I can be aware of them now. And as I said, awareness is huge. But I want to give you a couple of examples. When I was in the corporate world, I enjoyed it all back in the day, but as I got older and didn't so much, I used to volunteer for things. So I was the chair of the charity team. Now, if another work project came up, I wouldn't be the one putting my hand up first, right, for sure. But if there was something that we decided to do for a charity, it'd be, oh, yeah. And I'll be more than happy to take time out to organise it, get everyone together, manage the project for it. And I'd say yes immediately, right? Because I genuinely cared about those causes. But rarely did I stop to ask myself where I actually had time or capacity. And I used to get told off a lot for this, because it's like, well, that's great, but what about all these other projects you've got going on over here? And before long, I would feel overloaded and start feeling stressed and everything else, and probably take it out on my family at home and get agitated, etc., etc. But I kind of brought it on myself, because in that instance, if I'd done the love or guilt, it would have been for love, wouldn't it? But I still shouldn't have really taken it on, because I had other projects that would take priority really under the company's importance, but maybe not so mine. And then I started thinking about, what about as a business owner? And there's so many things that happen when you're working for yourself. And again, it's that old pattern comes knocking at the door, doesn't it? But once you're aware of this process, although it's coming knocking at the door, it doesn't necessarily get to make that decision anymore. And this is why bringing awareness into our identity and what we're doing, and like in this case, it's boundaries. But if you don't start thinking about how you're behaving, how are you ever going to make changes? So this again isn't about only learning to say no. It's about changing who you learnt to be. Who are you in that old identity? And every time you say yes from guilt, you're reinforcing an identity that says everyone else needs are more important than yours. And every time you pause or ask a question and choose consciously, you're strengthening a completely different identity. Someone who knows they're allowed to matter. And that's how real confidence is built. It's not about pretending to be fearless, but by repeatedly becoming someone who trusts themselves, right? You're not trying to become someone new. You're just no longer auditioning for the role of the person who never disappoints anymore. So if you was that person in your childhood you had that belief that if I disappoint someone, I won't be loved, and that's part of your identity, then once we can start changing that, then it's okay. It's okay to say no. And this is the work I do with my clients. So this won't make disappointing someone feel completely comfortable. You're not going to feel comfortable overnight at all. But what you'll notice is when you start putting that pause in, it gets shorter. The yes come a less automatic because you can start processing them a little bit better. And you might say no to something small this week and realize the world didn't end. It didn't fall apart. Everyone didn't hate you. And you might catch the guilt, I don't know, talking and recognizing something that's going on, but it's not in autopilot anymore. Can you see that the shift, you start to, once you start becoming aware, you can start noticing the shift, and then you can start steadying what you're doing, right? And then you can start going, hang on a minute, if I just take a second here, I might be able to say no, actually, because it's not convenient. Now, here's what tends to happen on the nights this pattern's been running all day, right? So if you've got a day when you suddenly think, do you know what, I've really made some mistakes today. I didn't show up how I wanted to. I should have put more boundaries in place. You know, you might be replaying those conversations over and over and again in your head. Why didn't I say no? You know, you rehearse this over and over in your head, right? So you can't sleep. Your head is buzzing. You're overthinking everything. And what does that cost you? Now, that might cost you a good night's sleep, right? And you wake up carrying yesterday's guilt into today's decisions. And this is my new phrase, right? Tomorrow doesn't start when you wake up. It starts with how you finish today. And don't you think that's true? So this week, I want you to pick one situation where you'd normally say yes automatically. And before you answer, run the love and guilt check just once, just in that moment, and see what happens, right? I mean, it might be a work request, a family, a favour, but just think, oh, hang on, what did Julie say? I'm going to try that and just notice what happens. Your body's going to react before thoughts even come in. So it's about really getting in there really, really quickly, all right? And just taking that few seconds. You know, you're not trying to be perfect. You're simply trying to interrupt a subconscious pattern. And once you interrupt a pattern, and again and again and again, it will stop doing it because your mind learns by repetition. So then eventually it'll be, hang on, I know I want to take a second before I answer this question, all right? And that's how lasting change happens, right? So all that guilt and rehearsing doesn't switch off just because the day is over. And if your mind is still running through the day's conversation at 11 o'clock tonight, that's the same pattern we've been talking about, just showing up after dark. But don't you worry, everybody. I've got you. So I have got my evening upgrade, which is a free 10-minute audio that you can download and start introducing this into your nighttime routine. And what it does is it helps you calm your mind, calm your body, close those tabs down so you can get a better sleep, and you can wake up in the morning feeling much better, much more energy, much more clarity. And then you can spend your day trying to work out what your boundaries are, can't you? Sometimes it's simply a sign that you need to put yourself first. And this is what this is all about, isn't it? Having awareness, put yourself first, because whether you like it or not, you are the most important person. And if you don't look after yourself, then you're not going to be able to look after others. It's the old plane analogy, right? Put your mask on first. And this is across work, business, personal life, everywhere. Your identity is your identity, and it doesn't change unless you decide to make that subconscious program change. So just before we go though, just a very quick reminder, I want you to use the love or guilt check. So number 1, catch the yes before it leaves your mouth. Number 2, ask yourself, am I doing this from love or from guilt? Number 3, notice what you're afraid will happen if you say no. And number 4, say what's true and let the discomfort move through you instead of taking it back. Boundaries create temporary disappointment. No boundary creates long-term resentment. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.